Okay, everybody. I hope you had a nice weekend. We have some great topics for you today. We are going to open up for a Q&A as well. So just an update, and I did touch on this last week, and I wanted to let you know what's coming in the near future. We are going to be readjusting how we offer support to all of you, which is great news. We're going to be offering daily coaching calls soon. We're calling them clinics, and they're going to be more specific to different topics, right? So for those of you looking for help for initial setup, those of you looking for help in business funding or real estate investment funding, or specific questions about the product board, or miscellaneous stuff like getting your email signature set up, there's going to be clinics set up around these topics individually. Registration and Q&A forms that you submit with your questions ahead of time, so we make sure we hit those topics. Anyway, not happening yet, but when it does, you're all going to like it. It's gonna work very well. It's going to give you an opportunity to home in on issues without kind of getting stuck behind whatever the topics of the weekly coaching call are, right? Or having to have that individual call with your team leader. Not that you can't speak with your team leader, of course you can, but it gives you a place, a time, and a schedule so that you know how to plan out your week and attack these different problems and get the answers to your questions. And we are investing in education for ourselves as well, ensuring that we're always growing, right? We're not standing still, so that we can just make our program better and better every day and improving your experience. So things to come for the near future, but I just wanted to quickly touch on that. We're excited to get that up and running. We should have that up and running here within the next month or so. With that being said, today we're going to be talking to you about, to start, I guess, our 30-year program, rates, ranges, why you always want to give a range, why you want to try and stay away from a single rate, understanding the low, the mid, the high, why you never want to lead in either extremity. Anyway, Christopher has some points here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we can dive in. All right, Christopher, take it away.
Yep. How's everybody today? All right. So what I wanted to do is kind of point out give you guys some additional information, additional clarity about the rental rates. I'm sure if any of you guys have done any marketing or spent any time on Facebook, uh, you're always seeing, these super low rates. Rates as low as whatever that percentage point is. And what I wanted to do is kind of give you context of what that really breaks down to on this is now the same lender offers these low rates, but look, I want to kind of break down the caveats, the nuances of what these things are. So, want to give you a couple of examples of a rate structure for refinance. So, this is something someone's keeping long term. Let's say if they bought a property, they rehabbed it, they decide to keep it as a rental, they want to keep it in their portfolio. Hey, this is what the rates are going to look like. Let's say they want to just buy a property, it's turnkey. They're going to put in there 25 or 30% down. This is what their rates are going to look like. So, when you're speaking with your customer base, then you'll have a better understanding. Well, oh, I heard that rates were as low. I saw a rate of this. You won't get caught up in that example without understanding the full context of what that rate would be, and you can help educate your prospect about how that relates to them, because each deal is crafted to our clients based on their needs, their credit, their leverage requests, etc. So let's go with the first one. Let's look at a 30-year fixed purchase price. We're doing rates as low as 4.875%. But the key factor here is the LTV is 70%. FICO score is 750. So can I do a brand new purchase turnkey and get a rate under 5? Yes, you can. However, it's requiring 30% down, and I need a 750 FICO score, not a 660, not a 620, not a 680. It has to be cream of the cream, best of the best, in order, and that's the best rate for a high credit score borrower, a 750. So they need better than superior credit or better than average credit as far as that goes. Now let's look at some refinance options. The second one is a 5/1 rate in term refinance. Rates are about 5.875, just under 6%, up to 80% loan to value on a rate and term refinance. So someone who bought an investment property we're at 70 ARV or 75 ARV, could potentially do a rate and term, keep the property, get up to 80% with no cash out, and get a rate under 6%. Again, they need a FICO score of 720 to hit that level. Not that we can't do other things, but to get that lowest rate, again, you have to be on the top line. You have to be a more premier borrower profile in order to get premier rates. Give you another example, a 7-1 arm. So a difference between a 5-1 and a 7-1, that means that the rate for 5-1, it's fixed for 5 years, and then it turns into an adjustable rate mortgage. A lot of the lenders tend to do 5-1 arms because investors tend to turn over their properties every 4 to 5 years anyway. So if we ask someone who wants to do a longer option, I want to do a 7-1, so I want fixed rates for 7 years. I can do 6%, but look at the LTV. We're looking at a 55% loan to value, and we're doing a FICO score of 640. So I can do a lower credit score borrower, but if you understand that because of the 640 FICO score, I'm dropping down all the way down to a 55 LTV in order to get a 6% rate. If I requested more money, my rate's going to go higher. Next option we're going to go for is the 30-year fixed refinance. So I'm doing 30-year fixed financing, 6.375. So if you look at the difference between buying a property and a refinance of a property, because I go up 5% in the LTV, my rate's gone up by over 2%, over 2.5%. So on a 30-year fix, we'd be at 6.375 on up to 75% LTV, and that's a 680 FICO score. So if you're noticing the pattern, rates are really fluctuating, not just by one thing, but it's literally the rate is based off the LTV and the FICO score. So all of these things have to come into play when we're looking at it. And then the last one we have is a 5-1 arm. So we can do a rate as low as 4.25. I don't ever advertise super low rates. I just, as a point catalyst. But if you look at it, I can do 4.25%. However, it's only 50% loan to value, and I need a 780 FICO score. So understand that most of our borrowers do not fall between 780 and 750. I mean, half of America doesn't even fall between those scores. So realistically, even though these are advertised and lenders can't offer them to the public, the small majority of the public will ever qualify for rates this competitive. And so everything will be kind of readjusted. And so when you're in these conversations with people, or you get these counter, I wouldn't say ours, but counter points like, hey, I heard rates were such and such over here. Someone told me, I saw something the other day that it was a 4.25. There's nuances to the factor. We got to look at what's your FICO score, what's your LTV, because all of these things are going to contribute. The more risk the lender has, the higher the rate is. If you lower the risk profile for the bank, yes, they will give you better pricing. But again, generally, from what I've seen, most of our guys are looking for 80% financing at 4.875%, which realistically isn't there. And it's better to be upfront with them and saying, well, look, that's not how the market works. Yes, there are higher leverage amounts, but because you're taking more money, you want the bank to take a greater risk. You want to put less money out of pocket. You're going to have to pay for that to be in that position. If you're willing to mitigate some of that lender's risk, the lender will in turn drop their rate because you are putting more into the transaction. So this is psychology that you want to make sure you're employing when you're speaking with your clientele, where you have to help them understand and highlight the differences between how do we get one over the other. So any questions regarding what I've brought up thus far? So I mean, that's pretty much all I have, in reference to that.
Looks like Dave DeVito.
Hey, Chris. Good information. I'm assuming that is also a standard, 3+ deals experience of the last 3 years.
It depends. It depends on the generally on the purchases and refis. It's because you're doing a purchase. So the experience isn't as much of a factor as the credit score and things of that nature. If we were doing a rehab loan, that's where the experience comes into. But these are like more rentals, buy and hold. like a straight refinance. If you already own the property, we're going to refinance and get you to this lower rate based off your credit and based off the leverage that we need to get for you.
Okay, that's good to know. It's good to know. And do we have any rehab like for rentals where it's one where investor is going to add value, rehab it over 60, 90 days, and then quickly refi out? Do we have any products like that with that information, or is that different?
That's different. So this on the rental side is the long term, so everything's stabilized. So if you're going to be doing any type of rehab or renovations, then you're doing a hard money loan, you're doing the exposure limit. You're going to get the property fixed, repaired, rented, seasoned, and then you can refinance and then get these terms as your long term financing, either straight 30-year, 5/1, 7/1, etc.,
Gotcha.
depending on what's in your plans.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, and then one other point that this doesn't highlight here is that all these programs have prepayment penalties. Anytime we're doing any commercial properties, non-owner occupied, non-conforming loans, the reason why they're giving you these rates is because you're saying that once you accept this rate, you're not going anywhere, and you're going to be locked in anywhere between 3 and 5 years on average. It all depends on which lender and what the product is. So that's something also to keep in mind. Because people who, especially some of the BRR groups that are people who have bought houses conventionally, maybe did, house hacking and things of that nature. When you're getting a conventional loan, there's no prepayment penalties when I get an FHA loan or a regular conventional loan as as a first-time home buyer or as a regular purchaser. Once I go into the non-owner occupied category, that's when the pricing changes. So understand that rates that you hear for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac aren't the rates that investors are getting, but there are some high credit, high income borrowers that have, W-2s and stabilized income and good credit who are able to take advantage of regular loan programs at rates that are at today's market rates. They can go to a Rocket Mortgage or something like that. But when you're going into commercial, you're doing this as a business, the rates totally change. They're not in the same league. And so if you're speaking with someone who's also has that kind of capacity, like, hey, I just bought my first 2 houses. We did this house, kept it for a little while, and then we wind up renting that out and buying another house conventionally. You can only do that so many times before you hit a ceiling. And then after that, now you got to revert to, well, now you want to be an investor. You're pledging yourself into this arena. You have to understand that the pricing for that arena is totally different than someone who's a consumer living in a property or saying that they live in a property would get.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I do have some thoughts on this. Before I dive in, does anyone have any specific questions about what you're seeing here in this sheet?
Yeah, Ryan, I'd like to ask a couple of questions.
Please, go ahead.
Yes, is 70% the max if they want to pay a higher interest rate? Can they get up to 80%?
Yeah, there's purchase programs that'll go up to 80, that could potentially go up to 80%. And generally that's going to be limited to a one family. But yes, the rate would be higher.
Okay. The second question is, some of these guys, after they do the fix and flip, they fix and hold, and they go into these long-term loans. So they might have to not put down actually any money because they have enough equity in the property. Would that be right?
No. So generally, if they did some type of financing, they put some money in, and then the renovations, they did whatever renovations are. The ARV and what their total cost is are two different numbers. So generally, when I'm doing a rehab project, I'm making sure that my cost of buying it and rehabbing it is within a certain percentage of the ARV, which is generally 70 to 75% of that amount. So if I was going to hold that property, I would then do a refinance. And so that's where you get the rate and term up to 80%, because if my ARV of buying it and repairing it took me to 75, I need that extra 5% in order to be able to do a cash out refinance to pay for the closing costs, so I wouldn't have to come out of pocket when I do my refi.
Okay, well that wouldn't be very much. Yeah,
right. Because it's rate in term. It's just rate in term. So it's like, so instead of you having an 11% mortgage, now you have a mortgage at 6%. for 30 years, and that's what you're going to be basing your rent roll on. That's going to be your debt coverage. I got a 6% rate mortgage. I'm going to make sure that my rental income more than supports that new mortgage payment. So, and I'm paying principal and interest because you understand that a rehab loan, I'm only paying interest during the time the money is out. Once I go into a 30-year standardized mortgage, I'm now paying principal and interest, and it's amortized over the next 30 years.
Sure. I understand.
Any other questions?
I was just going to run this by you, a little scenario here, see if I understand this correctly. A guy has a purchase price of $150,000, and the repair value is $50,000. So his the value of the house after ARV would be $300. So what I figured here is that say up to 75, well, say 80% of the 150,000, the cost would be 127,500, and you'll give 100% of the repair value. So that's a total of 177,500. So then I take the ARV of 300,000 times 75%. I get a loan to cost of 168,750.
No, that's where you messed up right there. The first equation, the 150 plus 50, is your loan to cost.
Right.
Right. The ARV, when you're looking at the calculations on the both calculations, the loan amount is the lesser of the two numbers. It's either 85% of the cost or up to 75% of the ARV, whatever's less. You can't have both ends. So even though 75% of 300,000 gives me what?
225.
Right. But his cost wasn't 225, so that's why you're not going to get the higher number. You're going to get the lower number. It's the lower of those two numbers.
I figured the LTC at 168,750.
No, that the loan to cost. So if I do 200,000, right? Times
Okay.
85%. So 200,000 times 85%.
Oh, that's how you get the loan to cost.
That's your loan to cost, right? So that means
okay, 170.
That's 170. Yep.
Right.
So 170, and then when I go to ARV, 300,000 of the ARV I'm looking to make sure that it falls in line, that the loan is going to be that. So 75% of that would be 225. Yeah. So the bank's only going to give me the 170, not going to give me 225. They're not going to give me 100%. So they're going to give me my actual cost or the ARV. So a better example would be that you bought this property for 150 and you were doing $80,000 worth of rehab. Then you know saying then you would
30.
Right.
Yeah,
then you got a 230 cost, and then times 0.85 would give me like a 195 mortgage, which still make this mortgage doable because I know that I'm not hitting that 225. So how would I do it extreme? So let's see, 150 plus 100. Let's see, 150 plus 100 equals 250 times 0.85. That's close. So let's say if it was 150, you did $100,000 worth of recap. It's still only 212,000. So either way, I'm always looking at the lower of the two numbers.
Okay.
You know, but I've seen properties where it was 150 purchase price and 150 rehab. That would be kind of a scenario that would probably make more sense. Where's my thing?
Okay.
Right. And then at that point, so so that's how you kind of weigh the equation. So, in that example, just because a house is worth more money fixed up is not what the bank is going to ever adjust, base their pricing off of. I'm always going to base my pricing off of what you bought it for. That's the same way if I went to an auction and bought a car that's worth $30,000 and only paid $10,000 for it. I can't go to the finance company and say, well, this car's worth $30,000. Give me a loan for $30,000 when my bill of sale is only $10,000. Value is placed on what you agree to pay for. What you agree to pay into something is what sets the value. What you can sell it afterwards is where you're making your profit. But the bank's not going to reward you for your what could be. They're going to will give you money on what you're doing right now.
So the ARV actually would be the comps in the area, just like regular real estate agents figure, when they're selling a home, they look at the comps and they, okay.
All right.
Okay. Thanks.
You
Thanks,
got
Well,
Chris.
Terrific. Does anybody have any other questions here? We are going to update our product board with this information, and as always, we're expanding our training.
yeah.
Hey, Ryan, it's Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
Hey, on that scenario that we just talked about, who determines the ARV?
The appraisal.
Okay, so you have an appraisal before you begin any repairs?
Yeah. Yeah. So you tell me. So when a client brings me a deal, you tell me the purchase price. You're going to tell me the rehab project, and you're going to tell me ideally after this house is in distress, and that after I do these renovations, it will now be worth more money. By how much? And so you're going to say that after I get this repaired, houses are.
Christopher, you went quiet.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking. I was trying to. I
Okay.
kind of got to say. Regular houses in the market that are not distressed sell for a certain price in the marketplace. I'm buying this current property under market value because it's distressed, and I'm going to repair it to bring it to value of what my community is doing. And so the community, where I'm going to decide my ARV is because like houses that are fixed up in that area are selling for a certain price range, and that's determined during the appraisal. So when the appraiser does an appraisal on a rehab deal, they're looking at the as-is price. They also get a copy of that rehab budget, and that rehab budget is put into their calculations because when they do their evaluation, they evaluate a house in that current condition and shape in this area. Comps are XYZ dollars. Based off the renovations you gave me or that were submitted, we do believe that those renovations will bring the house more in line with other houses that are fixed up to that level, and that's where we come up with an after repair value appraisal. So this, when you look at the appraisal, there's actually two components. It always gives you the current condition as is, and then they'll factor in what the property will be worth after the repairs are done. There are cases where once that appraisal is done, that a buyer might have been too aggressive in what they think the market will bring based on the renovations they're doing. And so sometimes you'll have scenarios where the after repair value wasn't high enough to support the mortgage or our initial request, and then the bank's going to readjust the numbers accordingly based on what the actual after repair value is stated by the appraiser.
Makes sense, Tracy?
Yes, yeah, it makes sense. I guess I'm just trying to visualize. So, the customer's putting this rehab budget together. It sounds like it needs to be a pretty detailed line item. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I expect the cost to in order to hand
Exactly.
that appraisal.
Exactly. Yep. And when we send over our sheets, we ask for a scope of work and its line item. So this is why when someone says, "Oh, it's 30,000," like no, and literally that's blown up. I've seen that blow up more times. Oh, when you give a general number, no, I need a line by line breakdown of what you're doing. I need the sheetrock, I need the gutters, I need the outlets, I need the trimming, I need the toilets, I need the fixtures, I need the hardware, I need the flooring type, I need to know the appliances, the level of the appliances, because we can do a rental where we're putting all white GE products, or are we doing black, or are we doing stainless steel? Those details matter, and that's going to affect the evaluation and what a lender is going to approve you on. Because if they find that your rehab budget doesn't cover the rehab sufficiently, they will add it to it, and that can that basically can blow up a deal. And, because all of a sudden it's like you came in with a small budget, and they're like, "Well, look, you missed all these other items, and that could bring your rehab budget up by another $20,000." And now you're not within your ratios of your loan are not in place. So yes, an experienced rehabber, you shouldn't have that problem. They should have a detailed breakdown. You only find newer investors probably not underestimating the cost of what it takes to repair something.
Jason Rodriguez, does that answer your question as well? So your question in the chat. And the question was, Christopher, was does the lender typically lend 100% of the rehab budget? Whereas I know in the past they have typically. I wanted to ask you, what are you seeing currently in the market? And really, it's a bit nuanced to your point, right? Sometimes all of a sudden they want more in the rehab, and the lender's not willing to go further out of pocket. So can you answer that can of
Yeah.
worms?
So it's always 100% of the rehab. So even if the lender readjusts the rehab budget when they do their evaluations, they're going to take out that money from the loan amount. So the 100% of the rehab budget, 99% of the time is always taken away from what you're going to be able to bring to the table to close. So if there's a shortage between what that number is, then that person's going to have to make up that money in cash. So if your expenses go up by $20,000 and the ARV doesn't support it, that means that client has to bring $20,000 more to the table because their loan amount that they're going to be able to use towards the purchase just decreased by $20,000 because their budget went up by $20,000.
Right. Makes sense. So, and that's really, guys, I think a terrific segue into what we want to talk about next. And really what the point was in showing you this and taking a look at ranges is you got to be careful what you say to the client and what kind of expectations you set for the client, right? If you tell them, oh yeah, we're offering 4%, that client automatically thinks he's going to get the 4%. He's not thinking about, right, ranges. He's not thinking about how he qualifies or she qualifies. And so it's how you position things, right? So for instance, you're asking, does the lender typically lend 100% of the rehab budget, to where we can say to you, yes, right? You got to stop and consider what you're saying to the client, right? We don't know for sure that the lender is going to cover 100% of the rehab budget for the client. And so what we really want to gather from the client is, do you have cash reserves? Do you have experience? Do you have money in the bank? Are you a qualified applicant? Right? Because we need to yes, it's possible we can cover 100% of the rehab. Yes, it's possible we can get you a low interest rate. But at the end of the day, it comes down to what you qualify for. And this is often overlooked, right? So if I may, and if you guys can all see the text here, right? We enter this space thinking that we need the lead, right? Especially if you're new to the industry, right? You come in and you immediately assume, well, hang on a second, I need to go find leads. And then finally I found a lead. Here we go. It's week 1, week 2, whatever, and I'm talking to somebody who wants money, and now you go into customer service mode. And you think that you need to give the best customer care, and you need to answer all the questions, and you need to be, that is a losing, failing attitude. It sounds positive, but it's not going to have a positive result. This is all wrong, okay? And what you need to understand is that these clients, they need us, not the other way around. They need you. They need you to provide funding so that they can do business. If you're looking at it like you need them so that you can provide them funding so that you can earn a commission, you're going to lose, period. This is a very, very, very common mistake. And you can get stuck in this mindset, this losing mindset of constantly trying to help everyone, where really you need to have more of a sharper teeth than that. You need to focus on the gold. Sift through the dirt, the mud to find the gold. If it's a rock, throw it back in the river and keep going. Why are you wasting your time on a rock? You're trying to find gold. Right? And so it's very, very important that we understand this. So when we're talking to our clients on the phone, we've got to understand what our mindset should be. We've got to understand, right, that we got to get rid of our customer service mentality. We need to change our mindset. We need to turn the tables on the client. We need to change the client's mindset as well, right? They're coming in thinking they're in control. They're coming in thinking, or at least acting like you need them, like they hold the cards, right? They don't hold the cards. You hold the cards. They can't get this project. They're on a limited amount of time to get the deal funded, to do business, to make money, to flip the property, whatever it is. If they don't get their funding, they're out of luck, right? So when they get on the phone and they start being all tough with you, you got to push back and just say, listen, these are our rates and ranges. I don't know what you're going to get, right? This is our coverage. I don't know what you're going to get. What we need to understand is, who are you? How much experience do you have? How much cash do you have? If you don't have cash, do you have equity that we can eject cash out of so we can put money in your pocket so you can bring money to the table here? Because if you can't, next. And that's the way we need to think about this. And that's the way the client needs to understand. Absolutely. We're competitive nationwide. We can get the job done. Not a problem. Our best clients get the best pricing, the best terms, the best rates, all of the things. But where do you qualify? I don't know. I need information from you. I need our intake form filled out. We need to conduct a proper survey. Super important. Very, very overlooked. Very, very overlooked. Oh, you want money? Terrific. Here's my intake form. Now I'm just going to sit back, put my feet up, let my team leader do the work, and then get upset when it doesn't turn into money. That's a losing, failing attitude. You've got to conduct a proper survey. You've got to analyze your intake form and understand what questions we're asking. What are acceptable answers? What are not acceptable answers? What does your ideal client look like? What are their needs? What is their liquidity? What is their experience? Are you picking up information about their geolocation? What kind of properties are getting funded and getting through the door? Which ones aren't? Where they're located? This is important stuff. This is very, very important stuff. Commonly overlooked. Commonly overlooked. And it's all about mindset. It's all about how you're thinking about it. It's all about what your process is. You've got to quickly determine if who you're talking to is a complete and utter waste of your time. Do you want to submit that data to your team leader? Right? Because right now we have our CRM, right? We have thousands and thousands and thousands of business owners and real estate investors in our CRM. Not all of it is good data. If this was your business and it's your CRM and you hire people under you and you want those people to re-attack and retarget clients from the past, but you have poorly qualified data in your CRM, are you going to be able to convert that data into gold? Or is it just wasting space? What is the cost of storage in your CRM based on the number of contacts you have? Have you considered these things? We call that bleeding, right? You're bleeding money because you're storing things that have no monetary return. And so perspective is everything. And this is why here at Ion, we teach you how to be a broker before we give you a blueprint on how to build a brokerage. Our competitors give you a blueprint on how to build a brokerage before you're a broker. You're doomed to fail. It's never going to work. The goose doesn't come before the egg. Right? And so it's very, very important that we follow the right order of operations. It's very important that we qualify good data, we bring in good data, we pay attention to that data, we make data-informed decisions. We improve our base of knowledge. We improve our intake process, our survey, right? Our line of questioning, how we view the answers that come in, that we turn the tables on the client. Right? That we be the leader. Always. Right? That we be the leader. And it's a lot of responsibility to be the leader. You have to have your ducks in a row. You have to know what you're talking about. You have to know what you're doing. And you can't be afraid to fail. You can't be afraid to make mistakes. And those are the building blocks of success. You've got to go through it. I very much respect those that come in, like Terry, for instance. Terry comes in, he pulls out his calculator, he starts throwing out numbers in a scenario and trying to work out how it all works and comes together live in front of other people. And he's not afraid to make a mistake to get to the answer. Terry's getting his money's worth. Terry's ahead of the game. And he's going to be able to do that in front of the client because he's comfortable doing that in front of us. And that's what it takes. That's the experience it takes to be successful. That's the mindset it takes to be successful. So that when the client comes to him and starts pulling out the calculator, Terry's on fire, ready to go, just the way Christopher was ready to go in answering those questions. That's what it takes. So ask yourself, are you challenging yourself to improve in these areas, to be able to take on these kinds of things, right? Not to worry, in the future we're going to have workshops designed around these things to improve these skill sets, to my points earlier in the beginning of the call. But it's very important to start thinking this way and start paying attention to these things. You see, there's two levels here of support that we're offering you. Okay, I don't know what just happened there, but one is the nuance, the answers to the nuance, right? The questions you have around the products, right? We just took a look at how all that works. But then there's mindset. And based on the data that's coming in, and Gerald Phillips can tell you all about this, how we focus on primarily the program itself, the product, the setup, right? But not so much on mindset, because we believe we need to focus on what makes us money, right? And that's the program itself, the product, the leads, the lead generation, all of these things. But if you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to succeed with everything else. You're just not, because you're not thinking about it the right way. You know, we have veterans who have been with our program for a while. They've gone through these trials and tribulations. They know what I'm talking about right now, because their mindset was wrong. Right? We can give you the tools, we can open the door for you, but you have to walk through it. And it's more challenging than you think. And the challenge is yourself, is the mindset, how you go about thinking about these things. Right? What your challenges are, identifying what these issues are, right? Identifying what your workflow looks like today, where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, how you can improve, whatever it is. You've got to attack these problems head on, attack them. And if you can't identify them, that's the biggest problem you have, right? So you got to bring yourself under constant scrutiny and shine a light in those dark areas to see what's going on, and constantly stepping outside of that box, that comfort zone. Anyway, I hope this is resonating with all of you. We do need to end the call a little bit early today, so we do have time for a couple of questions, and then we're going to wrap up. But I want to leave you with the final note of be a closer. Right? Be a closer. And a closer thinks the way I just described. Okay? You have got to challenge yourself, challenge the client, take control of that conversation, help them the client understand that they need to be forthcoming with information that they are applying with you. You are not applying with them. Right? And to have a mindset that, I'm going to succeed at this. I'm going to win the deal. I'm going to close the deal, I'm going to fund the deal. But understand that controlling that outcome starts with you and your mindset, how you go about thinking about these things. And do you have the information, or are you on the road to gathering the information to get to a place to where you can be that closer, to where you possess that knowledge? If you're not, I suggest you put on your running shoes and get going, because it's a journey. And for some, it's expedited and it's quick, and before you know it, you're making money. For others, you're dragging your feet, and it can be slow. It just comes down to what you're willing to do. So anyway, questions in this area?
I have a question.
Hey, Jose. Absolutely.
Good afternoon, everybody. So the question that I have is that when it comes to the credit qualifications, since I see it's a FICO, so it's obviously personal. Now, does the prospect have to be a citizen, resident, when it comes to those credit qualifications for any type of lending? And this question is more based upon like my prior experience from working for a bank. So I'm just trying to see if just trying to make sure that
it's probably the same answer that you know from the bank. Foreign investors, that's a totally like everything I talked about today has nothing to do with foreign investors. Because literally, and if we go into like foreign investors, there's different categories. We have some that have have American FICO scores and credit. We got people that are just overseas. But it affects their leverage, it affects their down payment. Yes, it'll affect their rate, because again, it's a higher risk, because you got to understand that if someone's based out of another country, you know, I mean, this United States, we sue you for everything. So, I mean, and if I can't physically sue you and serve you, that becomes a higher risk. You know what I'm saying? We adjudicate just about everything. So anytime you make that hurdle harder, it's going to affect what a lender's going to be willing to give you, and you're going to pay that extra cost because they understand inherently you are more risky than John Blow citizen that I can get to and reach right away.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Hey guys, I have another question.
Hey, Terry, go ahead.
Yeah. And I was wanting to answer this over several times, but you were busy a couple of times. As far as urban and suburban areas, what's the minimum population? Would it be 50,000, 100,000, 500?
Okay. Okay. So I would say generally I don't get into population issues unless I'm talking about commercial properties most of the time. Commercial lenders are very keen on if you're in lending, because understanding that lending is regional in capacity. So if I have a California bank or a New York bank, and I tell you that I got this property in the middle of next to nowhere, that New York bank is going to feel uncomfortable because it's not necessarily anything. But if I told them that it's close to a major city, they're more comfortable lending out of their market area into another competing market, even if it's not as big as New York. But if you try to put them on the outskirts, they're not going to feel comfortable with that type of deal. And literally, when we do commercial deals where our location becomes an issue, we then really have to do a little bit more homework and research and try to find lenders that may be more familiar with that particular region of the country to make a deal work. In regard to fix and flip stuff, if you're rural, most lenders aren't doing rural, so that's farmland, stuff like that. Stuff that's way out the beaten track, that's unlikely is going to get done because the understanding is it's out in the sticks. The buying market there is limited, so a suburban area is not a problem. An urban area is not a problem. I just can't go rural. I can't go to the outer reaches of an area and expect to get financing because, again, the lender is saying that's just too risky. There's not enough buying power out in that area to justify. A lot of times we won't even find sales or comps in the last 6, 12, 8 months in some of these more remote areas. So if it's a remote area, realistically, it's just a lender is not going to be willing to put that risk. They want to keep their money. They want to keep their money in a herd. They don't want to be out. They're not liking to be an island. They want to be with the collective. So that's just the easiest way to kind of look at it. But anytime like I said, only other time I've come up with population issues has only been with commercial property.
Okay.
Yeah, I've actually had a.
Sorry, Terry, what was that?
Well, I that's why I was wondering, could it go down to like a population of 20,000, 30,000? I mean, as long as those homes are moving in those areas and there's comps, it seems like it would work for a fix and flip.
What area?
What
area of the country are you looking at? Okay, I'm sorry, Patrick. I'll say it. Like literally, it's like where are you looking in the country?
In Texas.
So, have you submitted a deal that you've had an issue with population?
No, I haven't submitted anything.
So this is what. First submit something, and then we talk about it because you're looking for where there's a hole in a piece of paper. We can find a hole anywhere. Bring something tangible, and then let's talk about something tangible and see if there's a workaround solution. But Texas is a big state. We shouldn't have too much problem getting deals funded in Texas. But if you are somewhere if you talk about a ranch in Texas, you're going to have a hard time doing that. If you're talking about some vacant land somewhere out in the sticks, you're going to have a hard time getting that done. So where are you targeting? And then I think that's where I'm going to let Patrick jump in on that one, but I'm sure he's got something similar to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything Chris said is on point, spot on, especially that very last part. Stop looking for holes in a piece of paper you don't even have in your hands yet. So, but on that note, what you want to also, it is okay to keep in the back of your mind, whatever areas your investors in, they need to be close to some metropolitan area, number one. Secondly, make sure that the area that they're investing in hasn't been depreciating. If the area is dropping in value, banks are not going to lend anything in that area. So those are the two things, that you can share with your lenders. But on Chris's note, man, don't look for the holes before, you put the boat in the water. In this case, stick it in the water. And if there's holes, then you find them. Get the deal in. Get the thing on the roll. So, but I will say this, and I'm sure everybody's been watching with a watchful ear. There is going to be a paradigm shift towards the latter part of this year in the real estate world. So just make sure that you're working with investors that are playing in the sandboxes that are appreciating and not depreciating.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I've actually had similar dealings with certain properties, and to both Christopher and Patrick's points, if they're within or near a major metropolitan area, because you've got some places like LA and some places in Texas where a town of 20,000 people is just right outside of a major city. So in that kind of environment, in that kind of perspective, like Patrick just said, if it's still growing, if it's appreciating and everything's looking good, we can still get a deal funded there. But at the same time, I've seen properties in, parts of cities where there's vacant buildings, things have been torn down, things are condemned and stuff like that. So it can be a major city and still not be able to get there. So the best thing really to do is to get an application and take a look at the property and see what's going on with it.
Would it be possible for us to get the what Chris was speaking about, the line items, just for our own information? Because people might bring up those questions, when you're doing a fix and flip.
I have not had that answer. I have not had that answer, Terry. Terry, you're on the wrong map. What your conversation should be, you see the survey. You should be exploring those 8 questions, identifying do they have enough of the aha points, then submitting a deal, and then we're online with that person going over the quote. All that other stuff that's down the line, you don't even have a deal yet. You don't understand, you don't have buying capacity, you don't have urgency, you don't know when they need this buy. We're not here to educate the masses in that format. We're here to discern viability and the need, the desire that they're going to work with us. So you're not an information broker.
That's a great point. If I may, Christopher, I just want to home in on that topic very specifically, and that's exactly the answer. That's the best answer possible. We are not information brokers. We're not. If you go down this rabbit hole of trying to answer every little question and learn all this stuff, and then you're going to have a curious borrower or applicant who's going to ask all those questions, and you're going to be providing endless information to applicants over and over and over and over again. And if there's no monetary return on those conversations, you're going to go flat. It's not going to work. And that you will encounter that, especially wholesalers that become real estate investors. They have so many questions, and you think that you're having good calls, and it's just a complete and utter waste of your time because you're giving someone a free education. Right? And so it's very, very, very important to understand that and to avoid it. These nuances, these little questions that you have, this comes from experience. And so focus in on, like Christopher said, your 8 questions. Focus in on getting deals in, taking a look, and through the experience of working deals and finding fundable deals, you will get answers to these questions based on your experience. And then when somebody asks a question, how does this work or how does that work or whatever, you'll be able to pull back from that experience and be able to let them know what's current in the industry, right? Christopher is pounding every single day, so he knows what's current. But just like you saw from Christopher a moment ago, he quickly steered you away from the rabbit hole and just said, let's focus on making money. And it would be the same thing if you were an applicant on the phone. Slow down, Mr. Customer. I need answers to these 8 questions, and I need to see if this conversation is worth our time. Because if it's not, click next, right? Very important. Patrick, you had something to add to that? And by the way, I do need to wrap up this call, guys.
One final note. I don't want to keep beating it to the ground, but Terry, understand that all this is not an attack on your question. It's an attempt to help you get through it. I want you to think of this particular question as the same as what are your rates? Because every lender is different. And not only that, but a lender that might be lending in, Potato Town, USA today might not be lending in Potato Town, USA tomorrow. So their temperaments they change, often as the rates do. So you know what, Mr. Customer, it may or may not be, an acceptable area. We've got a lot of lenders. Let's get it through. Let's see what happens. Float test the boat, and then plug the leaks.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Absolutely. And Terry, it's aimed at educating the rest of the group as well. So we tend to dissect these questions and pick them apart as best we can to give as much positive information as we can to the group. So great questions as always, Terry. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
You got it. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this week's coaching call. I'll post the recording later today. Please, those of you who are new and joining us, start thinking about what your questions might be. Start thinking about what challenges you're having. Record that information. When you get in front of us like this, now is the time to make use of these calls and ask your questions. Those of you who have been with us for a while and you're sitting quietly in the back of the classroom, consider, are you getting your money's worth? Is that the education you paid for, right? Make sure you get in front of us. You're asking these questions. You're working out this stuff so you're that much better in front of your clients on the phone, all right? Great work, everybody. Good luck this week. We'll catch you soon. Thanks.
Laters.
Thanks, guys.